So, welcome back, and we're now into the home straight, if you like, and to take us into the final moments of this year's Data Privacy Conference. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the stage Congressman Gus Bilirakis, ranking member on the subcommittee on consumer protection and commerce in the House of Representatives. The Congressman has a distinguished history of public service, stretching back to 1998, I believe, Congressman, and we look forward to hearing your observations and views on some of the topics that we've been discussing today. So, Congressman, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, and hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. I really appreciate it. I have the pleasure of serving on the Energy and Commerce Committee. As you all know, this Congress I was chosen to serve as a ranking member of the Consumer Protection and Commerce Subcommittee, where we work to promote innovation, champion emerging technologies, and protect consumers. As public policy leaders, we're truly living through unprecedented times with a global pandemic and a bitterly divided country testing us as a nation. Our economy and society at large have become increasingly dependent on the internet, meaning federal policies surrounding these issues are as important as ever. One of my biggest priorities as I've taken on the leadership role in the subcommittee has been to work towards crafting a bipartisan compromise of federal data privacy standard legislation. I've had the opportunity to participate in a privacy call to action forum with my friend and counterpart subcommittee chair, Jan Schakowsky. We heard from the industry stakeholders and consumer advocacy groups, despite some differences in opinion on certain policy matters, we've heard them express an agreed desire for Congress to act sooner rather than later on privacy legislation. I share that desire and fully committed. I'm fully committed to serve, and again, I'm fully committed to this goal and believe we are long overdue for legislative action. I truly believe that the status quo is unsustainable, and a patchwork of state policies are only going to complicate this process, obviously. I'm someone who has built a reputation here in Congress to build bridges with my colleagues across the aisle rather than tear them down. So I know that this will ultimately be negotiated and it'll be a give and take. And again, this committee, this Energy and Commerce Committee, is famous for working in a bipartisan fashion. So we must move the process forward. After our privacy forum, we were asked to have our staff participate in privacy roundtables to get up to speed on these issues, despite a thorough bipartisan drafting process just last Congress. I fully agreed and look forward to those discussions moving forward on a bipartisan basis. However, it would seem that since then, the process through reconciliation and apparent desire to allow the FTC to do our bidding through rulemaking has been disappointing and frustrating from my point of view. At the reconciliation bill markup in the Energy and Commerce Committee, we saw a subtitle that provides $1 billion to the FTC, almost 3 times the total amount of the full agency's budget for a new privacy bureau without any sort of congressional direction or guardrails for how that money should be spent. It may even be spent on other non-privacy related matters. We don't want that. My side agrees the FTC needs more personnel and authority, but it must contain clear direction and authority on how to accomplish that from Congress, who are supposed to write the laws, rather than unelected bureaucrats at an agency. I do not believe that the new FTC chair should go at it alone through rulemaking without defining clearly what the rules of the road are beforehand. So I'm disappointed that we have not yet seized the opportunity we have to enact real change and a product that we can all be proud of. I do try to remain optimistic that we can come together and do better. But thus far, I've been concerned that the interest in working towards a true bipartisanship has not gone both ways. And we've got to change that. And the status quo is unsustainable as far as I'm concerned. There's a real need for a good privacy law. Again, the status quo is unsustainable. We have a patchwork of state policies only complicating this process further. Currently, our patchwork of laws governing data protection are broken down into different sectors of the economy, such as in healthcare with HIPAA and in financial services with Graham-Leach-Bliley. Many of those laws have worked successfully in their respective fields, but none truly provide the comprehensive consumer privacy standard we need. In this complex world, one of our biggest challenges today for consumers and businesses is writing a framework that is clear and easy to understand. We want to empower users while keeping the spirit of entrepreneurship alive so new competition can come in and innovate without getting crushed by burdensome regulations. I think one approach we can take is learning from what different states have done and make a law that is clearly defined and easy enough for both businesses and consumers to understand. I believe that there are a couple of key principles that we should include in any bill moving forward. A federal preemptive standard that will increase transparency and improve accountability, enhanced and tough enforcement protections for consumers, and innovation safe harbors for our small businesses. We know the internet does not stop at state lines, so we should be worried about allowing barriers that may result in different one-line options, opportunities, and experiences on the internet based on where you live. This is why I strongly believe we must enact national privacy standards that protects all Americans, a standard that protects all Americans and preempts state laws. I also do not believe a privacy right of action on privacy would be an appropriate avenue of enforcement to take. We should not let trial bar lawyers set public policy through the courts or even demand letters. But we must also ensure consumers easily understand how their information is collected, used, and shared, and we should ensure that companies who misuse consumer information be held sufficiently accountable. It is critical that the companies provide reasonable measures to protect constituents' information. We've been working on that. And then we strengthen enforcement against bad actors who exploit personal data for their own gain. We cannot crush small businesses in the process. And I think it's just as important that we protect innovators in this space. For example, in Europe, investments in startups went down by more than 40% since the GDPR went into effect. And we want to prevent those types of unintended consequences here. Instead, we want our small businesses hiring software engineers, not lawyers. Innovation within the tech industry is critically important. After all, we all know some of the biggest technology companies in the world started out with mere humble beginnings. And while I admire the ingenuity of these companies, the reality is many of them have become so large and powerful that they bear a huge amount of responsibility that they must take seriously. Unfortunately, many of my constituents, 82% in my district, according to a survey that I ran, simply don't trust the biggest technology companies to be good stewards of their platforms or consistently enforce their policies. This needs to change. We must reestablish the necessary trust between users, consumers, and the platforms that they utilize on a daily basis. There must be proper safeguards in place to ensure transparency on how they use the mass amounts of data they receive and the content that is moderated and should be held accountable when the systems they put into place are not achieving those end goals. In closing, I want to thank all of you again for inviting me to speak before you today. I will be continuing to work in my capacity as ranking member of the Consumer Protection and Commerce Subcommittee towards real solutions that will increase transparency and accountability online. We can make our lives online better and safer. And I hope we can come together to deliver clear protections for all Americans without creating unnecessary harms for entrepreneurs and small businesses. We can do it. To do that, though, we must move forward with hearings and legislative consideration on proposals. The roundtables aren't good enough. We cannot and should not delay in enacting a federal privacy framework that accomplishes many of these goals for our consumers. Thank you very much.
Well, that concludes this year's US Data Privacy Conference. And thanks again to you, Congressman, for your intervention and great rallying call there, and for being with us during what I know is a very busy day for you. So thank you very much, Congressman, for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And indeed, thanks to everyone that has spoken, attended, and actively participated across the day's program. A big thank you once again to all our conference sponsors and to our panel moderators throughout the day, who often don't get the credit they deserve. Knitting together the discussions and managing the sessions in this virtual setting comes with unique challenges. But I know that I speak for the whole team here when I say that you all did a great job, and it's very much appreciated. I'd like to reserve some special thanks to the Forum Global team responsible for producing this year's event, namely Annalise Simon, who many of you will be now familiar with, who continues to do an amazing job in steering this event and many others that we produce each year. Thanks to Rebecca Matheson, production and logistics extraordinaire, to Geraldine Evans and to Luke Pearson, all of whom who have made an amazing contribution and are a credit to this conference and to Forum Global. So thank you to you. All the discussions and replays will be made available to you shortly. My colleagues will be working hard prepping this for you. And if you have any questions on this year's event or any other of our activities, don't hesitate to reach out to the team. As I mentioned this morning, it's our intention to now start work on the in-person Data Privacy Conference in 2022. We're keeping everything crossed and hoping we'll get to see you all in DC next fall. And it'll be fascinating to track the developments in data privacy across the US in the intervening period. So with that, I'll close this year's event. I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day and evening, and thank you very much indeed once again for being with us.